afternoon, everybody. Kate here from the Safeguarding Association, and I'm here for another Safeguarding Spotlight. I want to talk to you about something that's come up a couple of times in training recently when I've been working with DSLs and DSOs within higher education. And that's the concept around less safeguarding, more welfare. And I want to talk to you today about why I think that less safeguarding, more welfare can be a strategic risk within higher education. Now, let me start off. If you've worked anywhere near safeguarding within higher education for any length of time, you will know that it is not straightforward. There is no blueprint. There is no document that you can lean on that says this is how you do safeguarding in higher education. So you are having, with your safeguarding leads and your strategic leads, you're having to mix and match the various bits of legislation, the various bits of guidance, and the requirements that you might have for things like apprenticeship provision through Ofsted, all together to come up with something that works for your institution. So it's not straightforward, and there is not a one size fits all, which is a huge blessing, but also potentially an enormous curse. And I want to explain why I think there is a strategic risk if we move into that's not safeguarding, that's welfare, and that's fed all the way through up to strategic leads who may be looking at information within audit and risk committees. Now, there is a huge mix of views about where safeguarding should sit. There is a huge mix of views about how safeguarding should be run. And what I see a lot of within higher education is a very firm view that the people that you work with are over 18, and therefore, because there is no statutory duty for safeguarding, that you don't really need to worry about it. And unless somebody meets the criteria of an adult at risk, everything else is welfare. And I absolutely take that point. Let me be really clear. I absolutely take that point. But there's a big caveat with that. And the caveat is this, that from a strategic perspective, if things are being categorized as welfare and not safeguarding because of that delineation, you can fall into a very dangerous trap, and this false assurance loop starts to happen because it looks like there aren't many safeguarding cases. And so when senior managers, directors are looking at safeguarding, it doesn't look like there's an issue. And it doesn't look like there are particularly high numbers. And there aren't usually particularly high numbers. Let me be clear about that. But there is also a risk that because things aren't labelled as safeguarding, that the seriousness of the welfare issues can be downplayed or misinterpreted within higher levels within the institution. And where safeguarding sits and welfare sits very operationally, there is a real risk that at governance level, what's happening operationally doesn't necessarily need to be overly worried about at a strategic level. And that's a very dangerous place to be, because it can massively misrepresent the work that's happening at a welfare level. It can misrepresent the risks that are being placed in and around the operational team's work, and risks that staff and students might be facing. Now, I'm aware that because of the changes around things like E6, and also we've had Prevent for over a decade now, those sorts of things are there. But it's one of those areas where we need to have very clear delineation and very clear definitions around what we mean. So from a governance perspective, you need to be assured that there is a clear and defensible threshold around the difference between what you're treating as safeguarding and what you are treating as welfare. And if that is fuzzy, and it can be fuzzy by its very nature, but if it's fuzzy, you then have a number of risks that appear at strategic level. The first is nobody's taking accountability. So yes, there might be lots of stuff happening operationally, but at a strategic level, who is taking accountability for those welfare issues? If there's no accountability, then where does the responsibility sit? And where are those conversations about impact on students actually taking place, if at all? The second thing, if it's fuzzy, is where and what data are you looking at as a strategic lead? Is the data you are being given or the data you're asking for just about safeguarding? Or are you asking broader questions around the work that the operational team for welfare, well-being, safeguarding are actually doing? You need to be sure that the data that you're being given within the reports that you're being handed and being asked to review and that are there to give you assurance, you understand, and they aren't misleading you into a false sense of security. The other area that becomes a risk from a strategic perspective is where, if there's no accountability at a director level around welfare issues, where are those serious matters being managed? Who is managing them? And what I can see happen, and what I have seen happen, and what I do see happen, is that the operational level, where some really serious matters sit because they are welfare, not safeguarding, those operational teams may have welfare officers, safeguarding officers who are at a lower grade, who are holding high levels of cases that can be very, very serious and can, if the right support isn't in place, lead to potential reputational risk for the institution, as well as risks for the employee who is managing those situations. If there is all of that happening, then what are you seeing and how are you able at a strategic level to be assured that there is holistic support for the students who need it? Where is safeguarding / welfare in decisions around impact on grading, impact on fitness to study, fitness to practice? Where is safeguarding in terms of academic decisions that might be being made? Are you assured that safeguarding / welfare, with that correct delineation, permeates deeply enough into your various schools, into your various decision-making bodies, that you are able to make decisions appropriately, but also safely for those learners? Because as we have tragically seen, decisions that are made within silos can cause very significant issues at a later stage, and very tragically, we can find students who feel that they have no support because they don't know where to turn, and they can end up being in a very, very treacherous place in terms of their mental health. And we don't want that to happen. So why is less safeguarding and more welfare a strategic risk? Well, it's there because of all of those reasons I've seen, but primarily, if it's fuzzy and there is no accountability, that leaves you open to a lack of assurance, a lack of support for learners, and ultimately can lead to enormous reputational risk. So I urge you as strategic leads, next time you have a board report come to you about safeguarding, ask those questions. Make sure you are satisfied that there is an appropriate link. Make sure you're satisfied that these are being seen, that the data is being shared with you appropriately, and that you are satisfied as strategic lead that various steps are taken in order to protect your learners and your staff and your institution. If you want my help, if you want to have a conversation, and I apologise about the dog barking, Lord knows what he's seen, he comes as an added bonus if you want to come and have a conversation with me. So feel free to send me a message either on any of these platforms or to send me an email, hello@safeguarding.com, and I will more than happily have a conversation with you. Have a good afternoon, and I'm Kate from the Safeguarding Association.